Cthulhu Summer Solstice Ritual 2011. The ancient Egyptian equivalent of the Emerald City is the Field of Malachite. Nasat, Shlod, Fask, Agant, Scarfa, Nilos, Sargadu, and it crawls to where no Israelite will go. My heart is as a carnelian outside the Ya'un Kalul sign of 15 that we know here. In the murky transcendence, the sounds and even lights become clear. What is this one? Drauga, Demonology and Magic. Okay, let's go back and hold on for a second. What's the spelling? N-A-S-A-T, so let me see if there's another way I can pronounce that. Nasat, Shlod, Fask, Agant, Scarfa, Nilos, Sargada. Okay. So let's make the comment on the Michael Ford video. Drauga, Demonology and Magic. Okay. The Yatukan may have been Dava Yasna that reacted as much as 1,000 years later to the Mazda Yasnahe Zarathustrahe. See my Zoroastrian playlist. The Maryanu were a warrior class that may have included demonolators and extend before Zardosht into a last ice age. Ritual chants have probably always been a part of civilized rites. The worship of Mithra also predates Zoroaster. The dualism, as such, did not come from him, but the male and female Davas were also good or bad. The Achaemenid tried to compile the faiths into one and strayed from the monotheism and natural simplicity of Zarathustra. It is no wonder that the ancient devil worship was revived as a way to access power and knowledge without the priesthood, and even without extensive recitations and rituals. Freedoms from the restrictions of Mazda-Yassian faith was one motivation, but also with the taboo-breaking stimulus. And let me see. Unpacking magical practices, 3 systems of magical manifestation. That sounds like something Black Witch Coven-y. I'd be doing these ones live, but not so many subscribers. I don't know if I've said that today, but thought, emotion, and spiritual would leave out physically based, but a person can merely act the evil magic. People always get results, but I don't think any being with a gender always gets what they want all the time. The experience model would be based on putting the least effort into spiritual operations while having the greater output or variety. Using a number of systems is generally a result because people don't see how one system will be enough on its own. And what is this one? Know thyself, a foundational aspect of ritual magic. Okay, I'm going to have to see the comment, and then maybe I can figure out the style of the person that I'm responding to. I don't know why AOL, when I sent out these emails, it's probably why why I lost a lot of contacts, is because they made it so intensely difficult to communicate with people, because they spaced out your emails for no reason. You just copy and paste, and other programs, keep it 12 font. Okay. One of the things about the magical fugue is when the smoke seems to shift in more than a natural way. J.D. Temple's right in that we are the gatekeepers who decide what and whom to let in or take away. He who knows himself knows who to hate, what Lord he has, and whether or not to study and pray. The power and experience of an adept, when compared to struggling novices, is like unto night and day. Everything counts, and our vessels is the way. And what is this one called? Islam Unveiled Religion Documentary Real Stories. Some people are going to take issue of my big video put out in the 9th month of the year, but honestly, if that was all my channel was, that would be all my channel was. So that, the poems that come out during and after that month, other such things. But expressing my understanding and experience in the terms of other cultures and about other cultures, that's, it's not deviating from that list now, is it? Let me, come on. Okay. Terrorism and crime are examples of disbelief and disobedience of what Islam has brought. Fundamentalist Islam liberates from the shackles of conservatism and the indifference of liberalism. Islam teaches that the best of men don't even spank their wives, but that is because the best of men are for the best of women, and other measures are enough. She should know that Islam never allowed people to enforce full modesty. Requirements outside of the masjid, hijab, abaya, is about equality of women covering the same areas as men. Complaining about it demeans, people have their choices, but women for their choice. Calling that alone a veil is misleading. A hoodie is not a veil. Even face covering outside of a storm is a choice they should be allowed to make. But Islam does not allow their testimony to count in court or before legal authorities if they are not willing to show their face to be identified. Men are also required to cover the areas where sexual arousal, physical sexual sensation is possible, but they're not allowed leniency for other than poverty or, disability. They can't cover themselves because they're that poor or something. There is no Wahhabi sect of Islam, but Unitarians, and they are reformist rather than fundamentalist. Women and men have differences, and not differentiating between them. There are means they are not treated as equal. Men and women deserve to be punished for serious crimes just the same. Islam actually requires 13 for females and 15 for males in puberty as far as their legal accountability, that they have their full, they're considered accountable for their decisions for the property in terms of greater society and, their actions and everything else. How do I summarize that in a quick way? Westernized values like those of Marxism and Protestant Christianity are not Islamic fundamentalism. Well, Khomeini kind of went a little bit Catholic on us, but are not Islamic fundamentalist. It's not Islamic fundamentalism. Islam is the most modern faith and has always had what can be called a more direct acceptance of Islamic states are always democratic, but that neither means religion is enforced nor that the popular opinion is enforced. Ritual genital mutilation, and other cosmetic surgery has no acceptance in Islam for either gender. Muhammad ibn Abdullah taught that the less cutting, the more reward. Common sense says that no cutting is best, and the narration mentions the enjoyment of both spouses, circumcision, subincision, and castration does not reduce marital sex. Well, it doesn't have as much effect on reducing extramarital sex as people would think. It has little effect on chastity rates, and people still want to have marital sex and end up hurting each other rather than it being good when they've gone to lengths like that. It is misleading to refer to Sharia as anything but either moderate and a middle path, or as one's accepted law system. A marriage in Islam is not the type of run-off to bed, saying the vows as you get naked. Yeah, there really were people who would run off and say the vows as they go to bed. That's not a marriage. Marriage doesn't look like fornication. Consider yourself as married, as an orphan? Olden times, maybe? I don't know. Temporary marriages are like glorified prostitution. Women can marry who they want, and people need to admit forced marriage is not the same as arranged marriage. No Muslim prays to or through saints, prophets, or angels. Fundamentalists would know that most of what people treat as death penalty crimes either has no punishment under actual Islamic rule or a lesser penalty. Secular law is enforcing ideology instead of mythology. Actually, Pakistan has 2 items in their constitution that have never been implemented that would make them a completely Islamic state, instead of westernized or conservative state that enforces elaborations of ideology. It is important for people to realize that reformist or orthodox views of faiths are less about returns to a faith's roots than an attempt to react to change in a way perceived as of a faith. What is this? Suggestions on beginning the practice of meditation. Might as well. What is group? Okay, that's weird that there's just a word group in the middle there. Meditation is basically the willful changes in consciousness Aleister Crowley considered as magic. I would tell people to start with contemplation. And vocalization. I would tell them to continue with scrying and symbolic postures. Awareness of outside the body is likely primary, but inside the body is not just imagination either, but that is where it may start. The actual Kundalini is risen. Be just switching center. The actual Kundalini risen may just be switching centers and can ascend and... Okay, I'm not sure how I should have written that because... didn't descend many times in the same ritual. The root chakra is cleansed by taking care of one's diet and not exposing oneself to harmful chemicals or allergy foods. The strongest enemies of meditation as a term tend to be a faiths that have detailed instructions or structures for it. You know, all these names and passwords, and you follow down this tunnel, and not necessarily, but How to pull a studying all-nighter when you procrastinate on schoolwork. That sounds like a video by a woman, a particular woman, yes. Hopefully she'll appear on my channel. Not for something foolish like that, but something more valuable, something fitting towards my channel, not certain ideas that she puts forth, but she's going to share her opinion, and I'm going to respond to some stuff if that's the case. So what do you think this little logo looks like? Various attempts to redraw it on this little paper. Caffeine is a leading source of mood disorders, anxiety problems, and energy issues. Actually, it is more effective for people to go to bed right after dusk and wake up earlier and work in less time. Instrumental music usually reduces attention span and increases stress levels when prolonged. The whole food without sugar bit is as important in being aware of the energy and attention crash and overall takeaway of caffeine. Okay. The Temple of Blackened Fire, Curtis Joseph. The type of altar and ritual tools and magic usually has to do with how the practitioners are evoked rather than something the unseen specifically wants. I can use my springs rings the same way most would need a larger scrying surface. The altar of Azanda's triangle, two candles being left on at different intervals makes sense. The 6 seals of counter creation reminds me of the game of Asha, being exactly like chess and having 16 counter creation pieces in black. The seal of Izira makes me think of the mechanical claw deer thing that people use as car ornaments. It is also like the Goetius sigillum of Marax, mixed with Barbatos, or maybe some mechanical crab pulling a stand. Therefore, I call it the Sun of Mars and Moon in Cancer. I agree with Curtis Joseph in there being personal and collective of both the subjective and objective realities. The talisman of counter creation reminds me of my buried sigilia mentioned in my Burnt Bridge Creek playlist. Ahriman is the usurper demon, or the usurper god as people would call him. Each can dedicate their feelings to whatever they decide to worship. I scavenge bones off a carcass for my spell bag. An EA quitting video I was commenting on. Some people were hoping it was off a human body or something they haven't seen before. Humans are designed to find patterns or give things meaning. But that does not mean random occurrence is a magical endowment. Some would think the Mandela effect, and even my everything I need is here describes this better. Matthew Lawrence thinks that the demons just line up or wait to give him messages everywhere. He is moving here, and that doesn't have to interfere with possible mystical states. But it seems less symbolic and more fidgeting. 1049 proves it sort of is. Found material can have its own power. The cameraman at 11:10 saying, "We are at 25 minutes and 10 seconds," seems to indicate he wasn't being as reverent of the process, and Matthew Lawrence's response also casts some doubt, despite impatience being an authentic reaction. By the power of cows, oak. Oh, by the power of cows, oak, roots, leaves, and magic, is one of the clearest implications that this was the sort of chaos magic that was acting magical without a prior plan or form. When a person is just doing a performance, or making it up as they go along, they should be honest about it. What constitutes having to kill an animal? Thinking of a reason to kill it on the spot? A grimoire says to. Ushering in the apocalypse. Some say Enochian magic. I'm going to read Enochian. I have a pile of Enochian books to flip through and some to read for this month. So, that starts at sunset. Some say Enochian magic is with the goal of the apocalypse, and its practice is certainly apocalyptic. When one gets... Didn't E.A. Coetting say he picked up the Necronomicon as a 19-year-old member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who did not feel like he was having enough first-hand experience of spiritual reality? Simon's Necronomicon was my first grimoire other than Aleister Crowley's. He wrote different texts on how to do certain rituals. I believe it is magic fiction. I believe it is magical fiction, but egregores and other thought forms attract and repel real spiritual beings, and it can be seen as representative of the secret nightmares and second-hand spiritual paths Howard Phillips Lovecraft knew of or believed in. It can be said that the call of Cthulhu, and The Thing That Should Not Be are Metallica's best songs, and are of that. J.D. Temple seems to be the person who benefited the most from Matthew Lawrence's magical boot camp. That is not of the Become a Living God crew. Well, now he is. Enochiana is full of symbols and constructions that are clearer and more direct than anything that would usually be called a grimoire. Enochian magic can be said to be 4 or so systems of initiation that can be repeated many times in life. Okay? The Golden Temple of the Sikhs. I guess that's one more comment to share before going. The first 2 Sikh gurus were Islamic conservatives, similar to the pre-Sunni group called the Khawarij. The difference is the initiation, guru worship, lack of cutting of hair, and more among Sikhs. Islam also allows for disciple making and personalized instruction. Sikhism encourages wealth. Islam also allows for disciple making and personalized instruction. Sikhism encourages wealth to be displayed in temples rather than plain houses of worship like Islam prefers. The best part of the Golden Temple is the feeding of the poor and what truth lies in the poetry, songs, and teachings. And what is this one? Can God create a rock he can't lift? Yeah, really flawed question there. Let's see how the answer comes out. I researched extensively about a group from my New Age religion that believed in 970 mythical godmen and 3 people historically regarded as living Ekmasters. In my responses, I addressed how they are not incarnations or uniquely vessels for God in more ways. Surat Ikhlas is not the only place in Al-Quran that is equal or greater to everything most traditions have, that may stem from a prophet before Muhammad ibn Abdullah has to offer. Okay. If God could create something with the gravity to hold down an object, he certainly would have the power to manipulate something in there. If God was limited by space or something, if God was limited and space or something was more powerful in any way aside from the power to choose wrong, he'd not be a god, and that thing would be sort of a god over him. Message and meaning of Grimorium Verum. Let's see, outlines the method. Word about the figures. Malediction. Okay, translation of the True Grimoire. I'll share a little bit here. It starts with Solomon speaking to his son Roboam. It is possible that we be talking about different than the ancient Israelite kings are. It could be very well a father and son leading a Jewish community by their priestcraft. The story goes on that some type of angel came to him when he is muttering God's name. Yah, or Mirabilia die in bed, and told him 2 Chronicles 1, 11 through 12, Debri himim ba. I would recommend these two verses be read or recited with rituals of the Grimorium Verum. Could this have been one of Satan's fallen angels or demons? This led him to concluding not only that secular science was in vain, but that he had all knowledge and skill within him, the knowledge of internal power and knowledge to be awakened. The knowledge of internal power and knowledge to be awakened is certainly central to certain Gnostic, Luciferian, and Satanic groups. This is particularly true when in the absence of consent or approval of the secular and religious authorities. Boam is to anticipate the paternal blessing, to take advantage of the spiritual work of his father Solomon, and to bury his clavicle shoulder blade text in an ivory or ebony box after his death and place it in his father Solomon's tomb. Should any spiritual text be hidden from the world, could any text be so dangerous as to not be fitting for the wicked? Al-Quran 56:79 mentions how Al-Quran should not be touched except by the purified, or it will not be grasped except by the purified. Al-Quran